I was born into the fire being biracial. The social conflict between black and white was my existence. And so my journey began exploring why that tension was so prominent. As a young linguist, human rights activist, and avid traveler, I was fascinated with the world and its cultures. So I studied languages and communications to better understand others and in turn myself. Once I began training companies on cultural differences to increase their cultural understanding and ability to work with anyone, anywhere in the world, I learned a few very important lessons. 1, how to distinguish the importance level of cultural data. 2, how to identify false or one-sided information. Is it true is one question, but is it workable is almost more important. And 3, how to help people unlearn racist social training and unburden ourselves of the biases created by our inadequate education. In order to move beyond the myths that keep the extremists alive and the moderates confused, we need to tackle some uncomfortable topics. But that's how we know we're growing. We won't be able to address all of the perpetuated myths in one conversation, but I want to touch on some key ones that affect the way we think about and treat others, how we make decisions, and why we are where we are. Of the many myths, these 3 are very prevalent. Myth number 1, only bad people are racist. We are all biased. That's why being anti-racist is a choice and being not racist is highly improbable. This idea of good non-racist people versus bad racist people is grossly oversimplified. Unless you're Clayton Bigsby, American comedian Dave Chappelle's famous character who's a black blind Confederate lover who thinks he's white and unknowingly hates himself, you too have likely been taught that your race and your cultural identity is superior to others in some ways. These patriotic learnings set the tone for unconscious biases and racist habits early on. That's why being racist is not exclusive to bad people, but being anti-racist is exclusive to people who care about others, because you have to intentionally challenge yourself and want to grow. So now that we cleared that up, we can tackle the next one. Myth number 2, being pro-Black Lives Matter means you're anti-all lives matter. First of all, these are not opposites and they are not mutually exclusive. So beware of people who use them that way. They are intentionally inciting division and don't want to see racial progress. Let's break this concept down so it can be appreciated for what it truly means. Not what the organization Black Lives Matter does or is politically, but what the term Black Lives Matter means, and more specifically, what it does not mean. It does not mean all lives don't matter. It means Black lives are not treated as if they matter too. It does not mean Black lives matter more than any other lives. It means Black lives need special attention right now because they're being murdered for no rational reason at an alarming rate. It does not mean Black folks want preferential treatment. It means Black folks want equal treatment, which they are not getting. Being pro-Black does not mean being anti-white. Being opposites on the color spectrum does not mean they should be opposites in real life. All lives can't matter if Black lives don't matter. Instead, we have to focus on the most marginalized, who are silenced by the term, in order to make all lives matter be true. Think about it for a minute. It's like as if you're at the doctor's office wearing a pink ribbon because your aunt had breast cancer. And they say, whoa, wait a minute. Sorry, no pink ribbons in here because all diseases matter. Until all races and marginalized groups have been treated equally and fairly like they matter, all lives matter is a farce. Myth number 3. Everyone has the same opportunities nowadays. Otherwise known as meritocracy or the bootstrap theory, this white-centered theory has been used to discount the oppressive nature of existing legislation in banking, housing, healthcare, and education in North America. In 2017, the United Nations Human Rights Working Group declared that Canada had a lot of work to do in redressing the present-day effects of persistent structural racism that began with slavery in the 17th century. Most of the first Black people living in Canada were enslaved, and even after abolition, were left landless and poor. Yet, white Europeans received handsome political posts and land grants that helped them build their generational wealth. Immigration was promoted to white Europeans, saying, "Living is cheap, education and land are free." Yet the Black slaves and immigrants already in Canada were never awarded land for their service in wars, or their free labor, or their sacrifice. Hence, no level playing field, no foundation to build family wealth, equals no meritocracy. This idea of bootstrapping builds on this false merit claim, suggesting you can think your way out of poverty. But in fact, recent Pew study on the American dream proves that social mobility between the lowest levels of American society and its middle class is increasingly difficult, if not impossible. So how do we validate our data and not be duped by myths like these? How do we critically think about what we've been fed in our social training, our formal education, and our media exposure? By reading a myriad of experts and reports from reputable agencies that do work in the space, that are committed to impartial analyses and robust data collection. Not government-owned agencies, not political allied agencies, rather social development agencies, human rights agencies, independent authors and historians whose life work has been to uncover the lies and illuminate the truths. So who are you going to read this weekend?